It's another day on Deep Space Nine, and we've remembered Jake exists. He's working on a science project, because that's what kids on TV shows do, but Sisko isn't impressed with his current idea of investigating which hybrid Bajoran crop is the best at growing. Something like that might help the people of a post-occupation society recover from widespread food shortages, but it's not very interesting, and that's what matters. A question of what Jake would do if he could pick anything leads to the idea of surveying a planet through the wormhole, so Sisko decides they should both go and do just that. Being the son of the boss has its benefits. It has even more benefits if you're willing to push the boundaries a little. Sisko's in a staff meeting when Jake arrives to talk to him. Eggnog was struggling with an idea for a science project, so Jake invited him to join theirs. It's important, too, as Eggnog's in danger of dropping out of school. The father-son holiday Sisko had planned for them both will have to wait. Down on the promenade, Quark is talking to Odo. He wants to advertise on the station's screens, an idea Odo passed on to Sisko. Odo probably only agreed to ask just so he could deliver the rejection, and Sisko hasn't disappointed him. Quark's frustration at the news would have you expecting him to react negatively to Eggnog saying he won't be able to work in the bar for a few days, but you'd be wrong. Learning that the trip will be with Sisko has given him an idea. Sisko's still clearly not delighted by the idea of Eggnog tagging along, despite Jake's assurance they'll still spend time together. Such an assurance is thoroughly destroyed by the arrival of Quark. The prospect of taking his nephew on a potentially dangerous trip through the wormhole has him concerned, so just to make his brother Rom feel better about it all, Quark's decided to come along with them. It'll give Sisko a chance to demonstrate the Federation's principles of cooperation, and if the journey just happens to give them time to discuss advertising on the station's screens, well, that's just a bonus. The planet we've chosen is very similar to Earth, which certainly makes it a lot cheaper to film. Sisko's had the sense to pick one that only has small animals and insects, so assuming they don't get space malaria, it should be safe enough. Quark is trying to fight through his hatred of the whole experience and an allergic reaction of some sort in order to use his charms on Sisko. He's shot down before he even gets the chance, as our commander is no fool and is well aware of why Quark came along. At least it's going well for Jake and Eggnog. They're both getting stuck into the survey, and despite Sisko's initial resistance to Eggnog being present, he compliments them both. The evening meal goes well for most of the party, though Quark has some issues with the native insect life. Despite everything that conspired against them, Sisko and Jake have still found some time to talk. It's pierced by a shrill scream. Quark's stunt double has managed to set his arm on fire, and after it's out, he has a good old rant about hating everything about this place. Even Eggnog's had enough of his shit by this point and stomps off, Jake following him to make sure he's okay. Sisko and Quark are alone then when the latter starts an argument. He's having a pop at Sisko and the Federation in general, and he's getting some pretty good hits in too, so it's a shame when the whole thing is interrupted by the arrival of someone new. A blast of something, possibly psychic shenanigans, knocks Sisko on his arse, and she asks about party numbers. Not ours, she clarifies, but how many Jem'Hadar. Our claims of ignorance are believed, and she tells us that we should start running too. We don't get the chance. Some more strangers appear, apparently with stealth technology of some kind, and it doesn't look like they're here for the jambalaya. Jake and Eggnog return to find the camp empty and the fire down to embers. Either the wood on this planet burns real quick, or they've been off talking for a while. Jake gets no response from trying to call his dad, and we find rather more footprints than we should. Eggnog thinks this is a good time to go back to the mega shuttle, possibly so his dad can inherit the bar, but Jake's having none of it and wants to track them with his tricorder. Tracking them won't be enough. Sisko, Quark, and the mystery guest are inside an illuminated ring, suggesting a shield of some kind. Quark's having a big old rant and trying to blame the stranger, until Sisko tells him to shut up and points out that she's in the same shit as us. His kindness might be why she speaks up and tells him to stop when he moves to touch the force field, warning him that it'll likely be fatal. Her name is Eris, and she's had dealings with the Jem'Hadar before, referring to the lads who were chasing her. The Jem'Hadar, we are told, are the strong arm of the Dominion. When more subtle means of getting what they want fail, the Dominion will send in the Jem'Hadar. It happened on her world. The Dominion saw their psychic shenanigans, the telekinetic ability she used to knock Sisko on his ass, and decided it would be handy. The refusal of Eris's people to join was poorly received, and quickly resulted in conquest and the execution of their leaders. Eris's family were on the Dominion shit list, and that's why she was chased when she scarpered. On the plus side, those psychic shenanigans might be able to help us escape if Sisko can remove the necklace that's stopping them. He should get a move on if he doesn't want Jake and Eggnog involved. They've been tracking all night and found the entrance to a cave, one that's being guarded by quite a few Jem'Hadar. Quark is shouting for attention, and this time Sisko's letting it happen. He wants more information and thinks whoever comes to shut up Quark is the best place to get it. He doesn't need to wait long. One of the Jem'Hadar finally tires of the whining and comes in, giving Sisko a chance for a chat. We don't learn much, but what we do is of use. He won't let us go because the Founders ordered them kept. Eris thinks this is impossible because the Founders don't exist, something the Guard denies. We don't get any more answers. The Guard says all the ships we've been sending through the wormhole have pissed off the Dominion, and expresses disappointment that he's captured a human and Ferengi when he was hoping for a Klingon. He also asks Sisko how he feels about the Federation Cardigan Peace Treaty. Whoever the Dominion are, they're well informed. Back to Jake and Eggnog, and they've decided to teleport up to the megashuttle. Scanning for Sisko and Quark from there is a simple task, but rescuing them with the teleporter isn't possible because of that force field. They also can't go and fetch help because the ship is locked down and needs a code to fly. Speaking of ships, one takes off from the planet and departs before we can get a look at it. Whether they didn't see the megashuttle or chose to ignore it is unknown. No point worrying about things you can't change, so Jake moves on to another plan. He thinks his brief time being an apprentice to O'Brien might be enough for him to figure out how to bypass the megashuttle's autopilot and take control. Not sure how much use that'll be when the episode opened with him telling his dad that he'd like to learn how to pilot a ship, but we'll worry about that if he manages it. Looks like they could have hitched a ride on the ship they saw. Back at DS9, we're watching an unexpected arrival through the wormhole, and they're not answering calls. They're also not great at respecting personal space, as the Jem'Hadar we saw chatting with Sisko teleports straight into Ops. A force field around him feels pretty optimistic when he just teleported through one, but it makes Kira feel better, so that's something. He introduces himself as Third Talak Talan, though whether that's a name or a rank, we're not sure. He's here to tell them that Sisko has been detained and won't be returning, a warning to those who would violate Dominion territory. After walking straight through the field around him, he delivers a tablet. It contains a list of the ships from the Alpha Quadrant that they've destroyed. The tablet itself is from New Bajor, the colony we heard had been set up a few episodes back. It would appear establishing a Bajoran presence on the other side of the wormhole wasn't such a good long-term investment after all. He teleports away and his ship leaves, efforts to prevent it with a tractor beam failing. The Dominion have made their point. Sisko's still trying to unlock Eris's collar, and they're chatting while he does. The plan is to find Jake, teleport to the megashuttle, and bugger off. He's also offering passage to Eris if she wants it, as a source of data on the Dominion is likely to come in handy. The collar is proving tricky, though, and Sisko remembers he has someone here who's better at it. Being ordered around again rubs Quark the wrong way, and he gets some more pretty good hits in on Federation hypocrisy before going to work. The plan to scarper in the megashuttle might be a problem. Jake's still fiddling, and after nearly blowing up the ship, manages to disable the autopilot so they can fly back home. Ordering the ship back to DS9 doesn't do anything, of course, as they've just disabled the autopilot. Faced with little choice, Jake's going to have a go at flying it himself. Back on the station, we've received reinforcements. A ship captained by a lad called Kyo will be going through the wormhole for a poke about, and to see if we can find Sisko. He's a bit wary of bringing people along, but they're persistent about it, and manage to convince him. That O'Brien has already started strapping bigger guns onto the two remaining megashuttles probably helped, so we'll be leaving once that's done. Even Odo's getting in on the action to make sure we have all our principal cast present, and we depart for the Gamma Quadrant together. Our two megashuttles meet the third along the way. Jake's managed to get it moving, though keeping it in a straight line is proving more complicated than you'd expect, so the rest of the cast from Deep Space Nine popping into view along with a much bigger ship is very welcome indeed. O'Brien teleports over to try and repair Jake's tinkering. A similar level of tinkering is being had by Quark, though a fair bit of his attention is on how complex, and thus potentially valuable, the necklace is. He succeeds in removing it though, and Eris does psychic shenanigans on the force field. A Jem'Hadar appears and tries to attack by swinging his gun at Sisko, which rather defeats the point of having a ranged weapon in the first place. Sisko knocks him to the floor, grabs his gun, and murderizes the guy by using it properly. He tosses the gun to Quark, who grabs that necklace from the floor while he's at it, no harm in making a little profit from his misfortune. He's still paying enough attention to shoot an uncloaking Jem'Hadar before he can twat Sisko though, and they all scarper together. The fight is beginning in space too, as some Jem'Hadar ships are on the way. O'Brien's megashuttle is still buggered from Jake's tinkering, meaning they can't take part, so he goes back to the planet to try and find Sisko and Quark instead, while the rest of them have a bit of a Barney. A slight problem, the Jem'Hadar shots are going straight through shields. The USS Not Enterprise is getting its arse handed to it, so we'll all have to bugger off shortly. It's long enough for O'Brien to find and teleport up our missing people, and he also brings Eris along despite not knowing who the hell she is. Curious choice when they could have been running from her or fighting, but let's ignore that for now. Time to scarper, though not before the episode has told us how serious the Jem'Hadar are. We've all turned round to bugger off when one of the enemy ships takes offence at this. Ramming into the Not Enterprise is quite the way to show their displeasure, and the resulting kabooms destroy both, while the rest of us leg it. We're back on DS9 and leaving the megashuttle, but not before Quark calls Sisko back for a quick chat about the fancy necklace Eris was wearing. The discussion is so important that when Sisko rejoins Eris in Ops, he's brought a weapon to point at her. Quark had a poke around the collar to see if it was something worth replicating and selling. Funny thing though, it contains nothing but the fancy lock. Eris could have broken them out at any time, and that leaves us with the conclusion that she didn't want to. A convincing escape makes her trustworthy, and a trustworthy ally makes the best spy. Sisko asks her if she's one of the founders, something she dismisses by saying we're not worthy of their attention. Odo takes hold of her arm and she makes no reaction at seeing him, which is something we're probably going to discuss in the very near future. Maybe it's because she was too busy thinking about escape. Activating a gizmo on her arm teleports her away, and scans don't give us any clue on how or where. All we've really gained then is the knowledge that the Dominion are tricksy bastards who probably won't let things lie, so we'll leave everybody to prepare for what's coming in the next adventure. There's a lot going on in this one, so let's fire through it. We've got the introduction of two very important species moving forward, the Jem'Hadar and the people we'll come to know as the Vorta. Tangentially, it's been a hot minute since I last watched DS9, and I was surprised by just how much of the mannerisms I associate with certain future characters are established here by Eris. The tilting of the head, the eyes to the ground in subservience. Whether Molly Hagan was allowed free rein with the role or the showrunners had already worked out much of their characterization, I don't know, but it's fascinating to see it so early on. The introduction of both species is laying groundwork for presenting the threat of the Dominion, of course, and showing the twin aspects of their approach. You could argue the Dominion are just a Klingon and a Romulan duct-taped together, but the whole manages to present itself as more. Enemies to this point have been a single note affair, and I wonder how intentional it was to show a union of multiple species as a counterpoint to the Federation. These are all things we'll be discussing for a while, so let's move on to other things. The most fun for me is Quark absolutely demolishing Sisko when discussing the Federation and humanity. You talk about tolerance and understanding, but you only practice it towards people who remind you of yourselves. Humans used to be a lot worse than the Ferengi. Slavery, concentration camps, interstellar wars. We have nothing in our past that approaches that kind of barbarism. You see, we're nothing like you. We're better. I've said for a little while that the Federation are more than a little sanctimonious, whilst also trying to present themselves as inclusive, so it's pleasing to hear it getting thrown at them. That Sisko doesn't argue the point is welcome too. Leaders are at their best when they listen, so we'll give points to him here, just as I gave points to Janeway back when she listened to Kes pointing out her biases towards the Doctor. Showing introspection in strong characters should always be encouraged. That said, we should also mention that Quark is dangerously close to engaging in whataboutism. Highlighting the flaws of our past to deflect from Ferengi present is a logical fallacy. As much as I enjoy seeing the argument, acknowledging our own faults doesn't mean ignoring injustices elsewhere. One does not excuse the other. Just a couple more little bits to go over then. Odo thinking of Quark and how nobody else will be looking out for him is a nice touch, and an addition to the ongoing frenemy business. It's also in keeping with his idea of justice. Quark might be a bit of a dick, but that doesn't warrant him getting left behind. Dax says something in this one worth highlighting too. She suggests grabbing Sisko won't stop exploration. While that's technically true, the Prime Directive might. If the Dominion can back up their claim of the territory we're exploring, that makes it a non-interference matter. Ignoring it to rescue Sisko is covered by a clause, that of defending Federation citizens, but continuing to visit the other side of the wormhole afterwards wouldn't be. Lastly, I was surprised by Sisko pissing on Jake's idea for a science project and referring to agriculture as low-tech. That's a bit unfair even before you consider he's running comparison studies of multiple hybrid species. We've already had a discussion between the two of them where Jake said he needed to find his own way in life, so Sisko trying to nudge him towards something more technical feels at odds with his acceptance of this. I even considered whether Sisko thought something else would score him better marks on the project, but Keiko's a professor of botany, so I'd argue Jake choosing plants shows an impressive level of insight. It's done for the purpose of the plot, of course, so what feels like a slight misstep can be forgiven. The most important part of the story was laying the groundwork for what's to come, and in that respect, it gives us more than enough to chew on. End of episode. Computer?
Space Dog?
Did we at least get paid?
Did we bollocks?
Woof.